TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Operation Wavebreaker, as part of which the IDF combats terror element throughout the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, has entered into its 9th month. The United States rebukes the United Nations over its unabashed display of anti-Israel activities. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan proclaims that Kurdish militias relying on U.S. support ahead of Turkey's looming military offensive won't be able to evade the tragic fate that awaits them. A terror attack was reported on Route 60 near the West Bank community of Kochav Yaakov this morning, when a Palestinian motorist deliberately rammed his vehicle into a 20-year-old IDF soldier who sustained severe injuries. The attacker subsequently attempted to flee the scene. However, a police patrol unit which witnessed the attack pursued the vehicle and shortly thereafter managed to neutralize the assailant. In tandem, medical units noted that the wounded IDF soldier was evacuated to a Jerusalem hospital in severe yet stable condition.
למרכז שלנו הגיעה בחורה כבת 20, נפגעת מפיגוע דריסה, הגיעה במצב יציב, המודינמית ונשימתית. בהערכה ראשונית סובלת מפגיעות שטחיות רבות בקרקפת ובגב ובגפיים. אחרי הערכה ראשונית היא נלקחה לבדיקות נוספות, בדיקות הדמיה. נראה שיש לה מספר פגיעות. בנוסף הגיע אלינו המפגע, ללא סימני חיים, ובעצם נאלצנו אחרי הערכה קצרה לקבוע את מותו.
Today marks 8 months since the IDF launched Operation Wavebreaker throughout the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, during the course of the intelligence-driven counter-terror operation, over 3,000 arrests of suspected terror operatives have been made, including 550 arrests of so-called hot targets. Moreover, 2,500 suspects have been successfully located, hundreds of weapons were confiscated, and according to intelligence assessments, approximately 500 terror attacks were successfully foiled. Speaking to an IDF reserve battalion partaking in Operation Wavebreaker, Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi highlighted the military's gratitude for the sacrifice of its troops, which is not taken for granted.
אני קודם כל רוצה להגיד לכם תודה. אני מאוד מעריך את מה שאתם עושים. אני אומר את זה גם אם היו שימו לי עכשיו גדוד סדיר. אני בא עכשיו מגדוד סדיר, זה מה שאמרתי לו, ולכם אני אומר את זה פעם שנייה, גם ובעיקר בגלל העובדה שאתם גדוד מילואים. אני מעריך את זה מאוד, אנחנו הצמרת של הצבא מעריכה את זה מאוד. זה ממש 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 לא מובן מאליו בעיניי. אני מתפעל מזה כל פעם מחדש.
While Israel enters its 9th month in combating terror throughout the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, the United Nations Security Council held a session on the state of affairs in the Middle East, during which the world body's special envoy to the region highlighted the surge of violence in recent months, which evidently threatens to worsen.
Mr. President, after decades of persistent violence, illegal settlement expansion, dormant negotiation, and deepening occupation, the conflict is again reaching a boiling point. High level of violence in the occupied West Bank and Israel in recent months, including attacks against Israeli and Palestinian civilians, increased use of arms and settler-related violence have caused grave human suffering.
It is important to highlight that the UN envoy's briefing is tainted by UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which unequivocally concludes, despite the absence of a negotiated solution, that the disputed West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, including East Jerusalem, are de facto Palestinian territories. Moreover, in accordance with this resolution, any Israeli construction of civilian infrastructure in the referred to territories are regarded under Resolution 2334 as a flagrant violation of international law and which has no legal validity. Therefore, rapid changes on the ground throughout the West Bank territories are evidently frustrating the United Nations.
Clearly, circumstances have changed in the 3 decades since Israel and Palestinians first embarked on the peace process. Neither can turn away from the realities of geography and demography that are reshaping the landscape, which, when combined with a fast-expanding settlement east of the 67 line, reflects an increased friction points and a deepening conflict.
Responding to the United Nations briefing, including vis-à-vis an open-ended commission of inquiry into alleged Israeli breaches of international law, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield rebuked the world body for its evident bias against Israel.
Unfortunately, most UN actions related to Israelis and Palestinians are not designed to advance direct negotiations, let alone achieve peace. They're only intended to denigrate Israel. Indeed, the UN system is replete with anti-Israel actions and bodies, including biased and disproportionate resolutions against Israel across the UN system. The lopsided focus on Israel at the United Nations, including the open-ended Commission of Inquiry and the recent request for an advisory opinion at the International Court of Justice, has brought Israelis and Palestinians no closer to peace.
The British ambassador to the UN, for her part, highlighted the UK's grave concern over the increase of instability in both the West Bank and Jerusalem.
The UK is gravely concerned by the increasing instability in the West Bank and Jerusalem. Since the 14th of November, 4 Israelis have lost their lives in terror attacks in the city of Ariel and in Jerusalem, including a 16-year-old. There's no justification for this violence. During this time, 2 Palestinian minors have also been killed in the West Bank, including a 15-year-old. 142 Palestinians have now been killed by Israeli security forces since the 1st of January, the most in a single year since UN records began in 2005. In the same period, 30 Israelis have also lost their lives. Each life lost is a tragedy for all communities.
Russia's deputy envoy to the world body, for his part, seized the opportunity to convey Moscow's anger over Israel's alleged strikes against Iranian targets in both Lebanon and Syria.
Продолжаются односторонние действия по созданию необратимых фактов на земле. Строительство поселений, экспроприация палестинской собственности, снос домов, произвольные аресты, нарушение статус-кво святых мест Иерусалима. При этом произвольные противоправные действия Израиля выходят за рамки западного берега реки Иордан и сектора Газа, затрагивают соседние арабские страны с многочисленными эпизодами нарушения их суверенитета, в том числе для совершения ударов по территории Сирии и Ливана. Выступаем против подобной защиты национальной безопасности за счет создания угроз для других стран, а также превращения ближневосточного региона в арену заочного противостояния с Ираном.
Turning to Ankara, where Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar held a meeting with the top brass of Turkey's defense establishment, as the Turkish armed forces are evidently in their final stages of preparation ahead of a wide-scale cross-border offensive into northern Syria. In tandem, following a cabinet meeting in Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan highlighted his country's intentions and urged foreign actors, without naming any nation in particular, to respect Turkey's sensitivities.
Ülkemizin sınırlarını 30 kilometre derinliğinde bir güvenlik şeridiyle koruma altına alma kararımız, yaşadığımız her hadiseyle biraz daha güçlenmektedir. Kendi güvenlikleri ve refahları için binlerce kilometre öteden gelip terörist, masum ayrımı yapmadan her yeri yakıp yıkanlar Türkiye'nin bu hassasiyetine saygı duymak mecburiyetindedir. Hiç kimse Türkiye'nin güvenlik ve huzur çemberini genişletme amaçlı askeri harekatlarından rahatsız olmasın. Çünkü bu ülkenin tarihinde sömürge yoktur, vahşet yoktur, bencillik yoktur, zulüm yoktur.
The Turkish head of state went on to pledge to annihilate any terror elements that exist in Turkey's neighborhood, all the while highlighting that their reliance on foreign backers will not save them.
Bugün içine sığındıkları beton tünelleri, mezarları yapacağımız teröristlerin kullanım süresi artık dolmuştur. Teröristleri kendilerini bekleyen acı akıbetten o çok güvendikleri ülkelerde hayatlarını pazara çıkartan terör baronları da kurtaramayacak.
It is important to know that the militia groups which the Turkish armed forces are currently striking include the YPG and PYD militias, which are two of the main ground forces that make up the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to express our deep appreciation for TV7 Israel's family of supporters. TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry. Therefore, your financial contributions essentially enable us to sustain our ongoing operations here in Jerusalem. Additionally, I would like to continue encouraging you, pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, and for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.